everybody. Vasi Vada Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O, coming up on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Opening day in Major League Baseball yesterday. 26 teams played. 2 games were canceled, one because of COVID and one because of rain. I can't wait till that's the only reason the games are canceled. The NBA is starting to get close to the playoff season. 20 some odd games left for everybody as we're about the 2/3 of the way mark of the 72-game schedule. And we haven't forgotten about the NCAA Final Four this weekend. Houston, Baylor, Gonzaga, UCLA, all that coming up on the Make the Money and Run podcast powered by Stables Media. Casey, Charlie, how are you both as we get going for the weekend?
Hey, I'm great, man. Baseball is back. That always makes me happy. For some reason, it always makes me feel young, and I'm ready to go, baby.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Again, just a note of caution to the gamblers. First couple of weeks of any season, just slow your roll, easy on the bankroll. Don't burn it all up. Underdogs, the biggest underdogs yesterday, the top 5 underdogs went 4-1. And if you bet those dogs, you had a nice day. But believe me, Las Vegas is out for blood. They are going to make favorites a little bit pricier than they normally would be, as we've all seen. And it's just a note of caution while teams are still rounding into form. But I'm excited, man. I love baseball opening day just as much as any baseball fan. And I think yesterday was very entertaining, even with all the surprises.
You can catch us Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4:15 p.m. Eastern, 1:15 Pacific time. Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page. Download and subscribe if you miss any of the live broadcasts. Anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. All right, let's get to Major League Baseball. Yesterday, an interesting day. The Yankees, Cubs, and Dodgers lose. Are we burying them yet? Probably not. The White Sox lose late. The A's lose to the Astros 8-1. The offense not there. Boy, the best thing in Detroit baseball every 5th day coming up this year. Miguel Cabrera, the first one to hit a home run for the wagerers. That was 45-1 odds if you had Miguel Cabrera to hit the first home run of the year. He hit it about 10 minutes before Gary Sanchez did of the Yankees in the bottom of the 4th inning for the Yankees. Milwaukee wins late against Minnesota in 10. The Rays get a 1-0 win on an Austin Meadows home run, and the relievers blow the 6-1 lead for the Giants, lose 7-6 in extra innings. Stat of the day, Casey, 39 strikes of 81 pitches for the San Francisco Giants relievers last night after Kevin Gausman had a 7-inning stint. Yeah, it was ugly. It was ugly. I'm in the Bay Area. We watched it. Let me give you one update here. The Orioles have a 2-0 lead on the Red Sox. The game rained out yesterday. John Means, the best thing in Baltimore right now, 2-0 over the Red Sox. Eovaldi got pulled after 5 1/3. The bullpen gave up the 2 runs in the top of the 6th inning to Baltimore. So that's where we're at. $1.60 underdog for Baltimore as we get in. All right, let's look at Major League Baseball here as we put the lines up here at the bottom. You'll see the baseball lines. What'd you take from yesterday, Casey, in terms of Major League Baseball?
Well, I mentioned there in the open, a lot of underdogs were barking, and that doesn't shock me. It's shocking to see snow at any baseball park, which gets back to Chuck's point about why the hell are we starting on April 1st? Because there is still maybe spring here in California, and I'm wearing shorts today at work, but I don't live in Detroit, Michigan. So that certainly was interesting. And again, a lot of dogs stepping up. I think teams that have to feel good about themselves are teams like the Padres, who kind of battled back and forth against the Arizona Diamondbacks, squeaked out that 8-7 win. I think the Seattle Mariners have to feel very confident in their bats, especially late. I know that may have been more of an offshoot of the Giants' bullpen kind of collapsing. That stat you gave out there is just horrifying if you're looking at how the bullpen's going to go for the Giants this year. I don't know if that'll be, day in and day out tradition. And also, Chuck, a lot of high-scoring baseball games. I mean, I took the under in the Braves-Phillies game, and that worked out for me, although I got nervous when it was tied at 2 late in the game. But Philadelphia picks up the home win. Outside of that, though, just chaos. I know you had the over in the Dodgers-Rockies game. Took a little while. The Bellinger thing was absolutely baffling, but eventually you got to 13 runs and picked up your victory. So a high-scoring day was kind of my takeaway from day one.
Yeah, it was a crazy day. It really was. My wife, who was not a sports fan at all, when I got home last night from the station, said, "Why were they playing baseball in the snow?" Because they had it all over the news, and I had to kind of explain to her what was going on. But interestingly enough, yesterday there were 8 one-run games, major league record. Prior to that, the record was 6 one-run games on an opening day. That was set back in 1972. So that was a record in the major leagues. By the way, you mentioned the Astros winning. They have now won their opening day game 9 years in a row. That is one game off from tying the all-time record set by, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, the Boston Braves, which won 10 consecutive opening day games. So, there are all kinds of just weird stuff going on, but it is opening day. And guys, I want to mention one thing. We were talking yesterday about things to watch during the baseball season and how to temper what you're going to do wagering. One thing that we forgot to mention yesterday is that baseball mentioned just prior to the season starting that they have worked on the consistency of the baseball. And everyone is taking that to be saying that the ball this year is not going to be as lively as it was last year. So one of the things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to track home runs and extra base hits and see how that is happening in ballparks and in games early on. Because it may be that home runs, extra base hits, and things will be down over the course of the season this year because the ball will be more consistent. Now, I don't know why they would do that. I really don't, because what do fans want to see? Fans want to see home runs. They want to see triples. They want to see doubles. There's nothing wrong with that. The only people who want to see pitchers' duels on an ongoing basis are curmudgeonly old sports writers in press boxes. But that's who baseball caters to.
Former pitchers want to see that too, because I want to see pitching matchups as well too, especially if I have the under on certain days.
Sports writers and
old sports writers, old sports writers. We'll fix that as we go. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live. Robbie on Facebook with us as well too. Happy Passover to everybody, and of course, happy Easter weekend to everybody this weekend if you celebrate. Big weekend. 6 teams are going to be off on Sunday this weekend, so and I think 6 more the following Sunday. So that's Masters Sunday. So some of these guys are going to get to watch the Masters in their hotel room or in their homes or wherever they do it. But some of the things for yesterday in baseball, obviously Matthew Boyd had a great game against the Indians. I can't foretell what's going to happen, obviously, after one game, but he is the best thing in Detroit. John Means with the 2-0 lead today in Baltimore. They were rained out. The Yankees, Garrett Cole pitched great, but he only lasted for 6 innings. The bullpens have come in yesterday, and they've given up runs. And some of the handicapping things I want to tell you that we're going to go through as the year goes on. BaseballReference.com is a good place to go to. If you're listening, BaseballReference.com, we can use the sponsor. But the idea is starting pitchers that have winning records on their personal ledger are not always indicative of what their wins and losses are. It's what they do when what the teams do in the games they've started. So if Trevor Bauer is 9-2, for example, which I hope he is as a Dodgers fan, but they're 12-11 in the games that he started, then that's not always good, and that tells you about the bullpen. Also, if you can track it, first pitch strikes, and also what the bullpen does, as we mentioned in the Giants game yesterday, 39 strikes out of 81 pitches after they take Gausman out for 7 innings. And everybody's losing their mind in the Bay Area about taking Kevin Gausman out after 7 innings. Evaldi, I'm sure they'll talk about it in Boston today, being out after 5 1/3 innings, giving up no runs as well, too. But you have to do it that way. You've had kind of an off-spring training. You've had a whole year off. From a wagering standpoint, baseball, you're going to win 54, lose 54. It's what you do with the other 54. They count, so it's not a bad idea to go with the underdog. I did have the Yankees at -180. I thought their offense would come out against Hyun-Jin Ryu. He was less than 50% on strike percentage. They probably had a lot of opportunities. I was watching the game after my shot yesterday, which I'm very happy about too, that they did not take advantage of the runners that they had on base cases. So some of the other things for baseball yesterday that you noticed?
Yeah, I've got, by my count, 7 favorites, 6 dogs. And then it depends on when you bet the A's and Astros, because that was an even line, basically, -105. To Chuck's point earlier, throughout the course of this season, you're going to find value on run line underdogs. And if there's going to be a lot of one-run games, which you'd be shocked if you just go back and look through seasons past at how many games, even with really good teams against really bad teams, end up with that one-run differential. That's another place where you can really find opportunities as a gambler. Now, if you're going to get that extra run and a half, you're going to take the dog. It may cost you a little bit more, but if you don't think that you're confident in them winning the game outright on the money line, then it's not a bad place to look. There's so many different things going on that you can look at. Divisional underdogs are another thing that'll come into play this year, because despite the fact that you'll see wild variations in favorites, like, for example, a Cubs-Pirates series, Chicago is going to be favored in every game, but these teams know each other a little better. Now, obviously, there's some new faces and new places this year, but when we get into the grind and these teams have started to see each other, they're all going to play 19 times this year. You will find opportunities there. I'm trying to get myself into the underdog mindset. I've got a dog today that I'm going to play because I don't want to get caught up in too many favorites. Although I say that, and I am going to be playing one big favorite today, but in a different way, which we'll explain. Because don't forget, folks, baseball doesn't limit you with how you want to bet. This is what I love about the sport. You've got money line, you've got run line, you've got totals, and something that often gets overlooked, the first five. You got to play with the first 5 innings. If you like the starters, as Vasu mentioned, these bullpens are just chaos. I mean, look at what the Giants did yesterday. If you like a starter, you think your team's going to have the lead after the first 5 innings of play, you can bet that. You can bet totals if you think you're going to have a pitcher to get things started. So the offerings are there, and that just makes it even more exciting as a fan and a gambler.
Go ahead, Charlie.
One of the things, too, you're going to want to keep in mind, wagering early on in the season, too. Pitchers are not going to go deep in these games. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, there was a record that was broken. Kyle Gibson and Brad Keller combined for 1 2/3 innings pitched in that opening day game, which is the fewest combined innings by 2 starting pitchers in a season opening game in Major League history. Previously, the record was 3 innings combined. That was set in 1893 by Willie McGill and Bumpus Jones.
Old man Willie McGill. Well, 5 runs on the top of the first for the Rangers, and then the Royals come back with 5. Kyle Gibson, Blake Keller, the aces, so-called aces of the Royals and the Texas Rangers in that game as well. That game ended up 14-10. The Chiefs over the Cowboys as the score ended up at the end. All right, let's look at the National League games that we've got today. We'll hit the American League games now. Trevor Bauer, 235 favorite. Obviously, the hype over the National League Cy Young Award winner with Cincinnati last year. 12 is the total. Senzatella going for Colorado. Blake Snell, his debut, his first time out on a mound in a regular season game that counts since the World Series when he got pulled before 5 innings, 4 2/3 after the Chris Taylor home run in the World Series. 8 the total against Arizona, Merrill Kelly. Darvish and Bumgarner went yesterday, 8-7 San Diego, the final score. Dodgers lose, I think it was it 8-4 or 8-5 yesterday that they lost? It went over. But 8 is the total in San Diego tonight against Merrill Kelly for Blake Snell, and then 12 the total for Senzatella and Bauer. Casey, go ahead and start off. What's your take on these National League games?
Yeah, let's take a look at the odds. Obviously, Bauer's a massive -240 favorite. If you want to ride with the Rockies for 2 in a row, they're getting you back +210. Another high total because it's going to be nice weather there in Colorado, even though this isn't a day game. Right now, the public is all over the Dodgers. You got 90% of the money on the run line and 97% of the money on the money line. So there's no money coming in on Colorado right now. 75% of gamblers are in on that over 12. As far as Arizona, San Diego, very interested to see Blake Snell get out there. We saw both these teams get hit yesterday, that's for sure. He's a big -215 favorite. Merrill Kelly will get you back +195. The total is at 8. Right now, 81% of the money is actually on Arizona. So that's kind of interesting to see that variation. And 54% of money on the total. Well, I mean, this is exciting, Chuck. Trevor Bauer, I mean, I like him. I like him on Twitter. I like him in real life. I like that people don't like him, which makes me like him even more. So I want to see him go out there and have some success. And then Blake Snell, little pressure there. But the thing about the Padres is they are so good at scoring that I don't even think if they get down 2 or 3 runs that they get panicky, or they will get panicky this year considering the power of their offense. But, these are going to be the 2 teams we talk about probably most this year in the National League, and they're both good.
Yeah, I hate to see Trevor Bauer have to start off in Colorado. I hate to see anybody play in Colorado, to be honest with you. It's just, it's such an odd play. And I don't mean we shouldn't have baseball in Denver. I don't mean that at all. But it's just a tough place to start off anything, because it's always tough to gauge what's really going on there, because pitching there is different. You have to pitch differently. And that's one of the challenges. I mean, it's okay. I think that's one of the makes it fun to play there is that you have to pitch differently there because of the air, your breaking ball doesn't work the same, everything else. You've got to pitch differently there than you do at other places. So it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts there. But if anybody can, it's Trevor Bauer, because he doesn't think like anybody else. And so, he's got the mental attitude to do that. What you talked about in relationship to San Diego, I don't think San Diego's worried. I think they feel like they've manned up and they're ready to go. I think they don't know what they don't know at this point. I think they feel like they've manned up and they're ready to go out against anybody and take on the world. And I think that's what's going to make it fun. But the Dodgers, man, I heard Alex Rodriguez today on Mike Greenberg's show. And he said, you got to understand now with the ownership and the current team and with the farm system that the Dodgers have, they literally have become Yankees West. He said, we always kind of talked about that, but that wasn't always true. But now there is literally an equity between those two organizations, East-West. And he said, it's a juggernaut that's going to be there. He said, for at least the next 10 seasons.
Steve Adipart, Casey Freelove, Charlie O, the Make the Money and Run podcast for Passover Friday, Easter weekend, day one of Major League Baseball in. Let's move on to the American League now. Andrew Heaney and Dallas Keuchel going in Anaheim last night. The Angels with a comeback win on Lucas Giolito and the White Sox. They win 4-3. Oakland, after the 8-1 loss to Houston, favored with Jesus Luzardo, the left-hander, against Christian Javier, who had a good outing against the A's in the playoffs last year and in the regular season. Casey, this is your team. You see the A's quite a bit. They're on your station. The Oakland A's, the Houston Astros, maybe a little bit of the Angels in the American League West. What do you got going for the AL odds in terms of today?
Well, you look at this one, and Christian Javier probably wouldn't be your number 2 guy if you had your rotation the way that you wanted. I'm not sure why McCullers isn't going. Maybe that's a matchup thing. I'm not a baseball manager, so I don't make those decisions. But the public loves this, and right now you've got 91% of the money on the run line with Houston, which basically, as I say that, I now look, the money line is actually coming in on Oakland at 73%. Let me just stop and pause. A's are minus 130. Astros are plus 120. A lot of people like the under. And last night you got burned on that one because the A's bullpen really screwed you late. And that game had under written all over it. Zach Greinke looked very good. You forget about what an interesting fellow Zach Greinke is until he's out on the mound and the broadcasters start talking about all the things that make up his mentality. And then just to watch that, I mean, I can't imagine how frustrating as a hitter in the box it must be to just look at that like, I'm going to throw it at some point, and then he lets it go, and it always ends up right there where he wants to put it. Today, look, Luzardo's a good pitcher. He's a lefty. I know the Astros can hit lefties a little bit. That's probably why this is a pretty even matchup as far as the numbers. I think it's going to be an entertaining baseball game for sure. I don't really have a play on it. I will be playing the White Sox tonight. We'll get the picks later, but I don't like Andrew Heaney. I'm not a fan. And I'm like, my best friend is a huge Angels fan, and he hates Andrew Heaney. So that kind of tells all you need to know about Andrew Heaney. He's not good. Maybe he'll win this one tonight. Maybe I'll be wrong. The thing I don't like about this, Chuck, is the public is with me on the dog. 87% of the money on the money line, which gets you back plus 103, is on Dallas Keuchel. If Dallas Keuchel pitches like he's capable, they should have a chance to win. They're probably still pissed about the way that they lost last night when they probably could have won that game as well. So these are two tasty matchups here. Also, the weird thing, Charlie, this has got to be the first opening Friday ever that we've had this limited a slate of games.
I know, only 7 games. I mean, it's just kind of crazy after you had 15 games scheduled yesterday, and now only 7 games today, and it's all season long is going to be a little crazy. And of course, we've already had a series cancel, or not. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say cancel. I'm incorrect there. A series postponed already, which again, we're going to have that early. folks, don't get all wigged out now. Two things are happening here. We're still in cold weather, and we know the COVID thing likes cold weather, so that's going to be part of it. And people are going to start getting vaccinations. That's going to help. So everything's going to get evened out here. So don't go into panic mode over the season. Everything's going to be fine. So things are going to be a little weird here for a little bit, but they're going to get games in and everything will be fine. One of the things that I'm really looking forward to in this A's game tonight is Jesus Luzardo has got a pitch that he's been working on all spring. He calls it the turkey sub. And it's kind of an ephus pitch that he brings in just in the 60s. And when it comes up, it almost looks like a softball pitch coming in. And when you got a fastball that comes in the 90, 92 range, and then all of a sudden you throw this pitch up there, it just throws guys off balance. And he calls it a turkey sub because he says it's nothing special. And the guys have been talking about it on MLB radio, and they said it is just when he's got that thing working, it just throws hitters off. And the reason it's so effective is that it implants in guys' heads that they've got to be ready for that pitch, and it throws them off because they're not ready for the other pitches that he's going to throw. So psychologically, it is really a great pitch. So I really like Luzardo anyway. So be watching for that. If you're watching that game, be looking for the turkey sub. And I'm also with you, Casey, on that game. I don't like Haney at all. I'm not really sold on the Angels just because I don't think that they've given Joe Madden great personnel. I feel so bad for Mike Trout. Probably, if not the top, one of the best players in all of the major leagues, and they've absolutely done nothing to build a good team around him, all in all. And I like Keuchel, and if Keuchel's on, I think they ought to win that game. But it's early on in the season, and there are oddities early on.
Two things here. So when Darvish comes back in 4 days, do we call his gyro ball a Euro ball then? If Luzardo's calling it a turkey sub, we'll go with that for right now until I get corrected.
That's very
good. And then baseball, traditionally, when they start on Mondays, they've always had the Tuesday built in for the East Coast teams to have the postponements and the rain and anything, so they can always make it up. But the Nationals and Mets postponed their series for this weekend because of COVID issues with the Nationals. Red Sox, as we said, I think it's still 2-0 Baltimore. I don't have it in front of me, but they made up for the rain. They made up for the rain yesterday with John Means and Nathan Eovaldi. One thing about opening day is even the bad teams are going to get their best pitchers. It's like I read somebody, I think it was Doug Gottlieb. I'll give him credit for this as we go to the interleague odds. Doug Gottlieb said even bad teams have leading scorers. So you just have to go with that from the fact that there's opening day pitches. All right, the interleague odds today, the Miami Marlins lose 1-0 on an Austin Meadows home run. Ryan Yarbrough starts for Tampa Bay. The interesting story about Ryan Yarbrough is he's finally starting the game from the beginning because he'd always come in the second innings of a lot of games for Kevin Cash a couple of years ago. He ended up having 17 wins as a reliever because he would come in the second inning all the time when Tampa Bay experimented with the opener. So I don't know if him being a starting pitcher, I don't know if he's going to get 17 wins because they don't last 5 innings in the major leagues anymore as a starting pitcher. And then you got Kikuchi going up against Cueto tonight. Slight favorite for Kikuchi, 113. 8.5 in that dead air in Seattle. It was pretty interesting to see the Giants hit 4 home runs. It was like watching the NFL. The turnover ratio favored the Giants, and yet they still lost the game. And we know in football that's a less than 5% chance for happening there. Casey, the interleague odds, it's pretty interesting to see the interleague games coming in today.
Yeah, and you got to think that, I mean, they set this total really low with Tampa and Miami. By the way, it's pretty much a pick of minus $1.05 on either Yarbrough or Lopez. The total's at 7.5. And after a 1-0 game, people that don't know these teams, which I'm not going to pretend I know them well. I obviously know Tampa from their playoff run, but they're a little different unit. They might just hop right back on the under. And don't be surprised if they don't just break out the bats and start winning today. Tampa, by the way, an excellent road team during the COVID shortened season last year. 20-11 on the road. That's really good, basically. or maybe it was actually, whatever. I don't have the stat in front of me. Let's get to the money. Miami is getting 85% of the run line bets and 60% of the cash, and 66% of the public thinks like me today that the over might be in play at 7.5. It's a pretty decent matchup. I think Miami was maybe my most enjoyable story last year, to watch a team that we all thought had the worst record in baseball make it into the playoffs. Nobody saw that coming, and eliminating the Cubs. That was kind of fun too, unless you're a Chicago fan. But a decent matchup there. And then as far as the Giants and the Mariners, I'm going to have to do a little examination of the Giants bullpen here, guys, because obviously I know their offense, I know their starting pitchers, but to see that last night, I mean, I watched that whole meltdown. My mouth kind of hit the floor. You can't blow a lead like that late in the game when your offense has just been decimating the Mariners pitching. That one's got to leave you reeling a little bit, Chuck. Johnny Cueto, we know he can be very good or very average. He is an underdog tonight. So, if you're a Giants fan and you believe in kind of how the flow of the first half of that game went, maybe you want to hop on them tonight. But this is one I'll be staying away from.
Casey, I got to be honest with you. I'm going to be staying away from the Giants a lot this year, just because, and that's nothing against we're in Northern California and we got a lot of friends who are Giants fans. And that's and the fact that I personally root for the A's, that has nothing to do with it. It's just that they're a team that's in a rebuilding phase. They have a lot of different agendas right now. And I think they're going to be unpredictable at this point, because I think they're kind of patched together in a lot of different spots. And I think that you're going to see a rotational personnel grouping with them as things go along, because they're going to be trying people out as they go. I mean, it's like Johnny Cueto. If memory serves me correctly, this is the final year of his contract with the Giants. So I fully, first of all, I like Johnny Cueto, so I hope health-wise he's back. I think he'll pitch well, but if he pitches well, he'll be gone at trade deadline time. So don't fall in love with Johnny if he's doing well, because the better he does, the better chances are that he will not be wearing a Giants uniform come September.
Nevada Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. Very interesting. The first few weeks of Major League Baseball, starting pitchers in this day and age will not go more than 5 or 6 innings. Unfortunately, that's not good for betting purposes because the money lines are based on that. So you have to figure out. Baseball Reference is a good reference to find out how bullpens are doing from the standpoint of what starting pitchers' records are in games they start, not their personal win-loss record. Also for relievers, there is a stat out there, and you can find it. First, what relievers do and first batters they face, what they're throwing for, what their strike percentage is as well. These are all things that go into baseball, and that determines the money line. It's just not the starting pitcher. It's the overall concept of Major League Baseball. Welcome everybody to the Stables Media Facebook page. We were off there for a little bit. We had a little technical difficulty with that, so welcome to the Stables Media Facebook page as well. We've got the NBA and we've got the Final Four to talk about. We're going to take 30 seconds here. We're on Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, April 2nd, 2021. Back in 30. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, April 2nd, 2021. Nevada Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. You can catch us Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific time, where we are. Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page. Download, subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. So we talk a little Major League Baseball. We don't want to get too bad on Major League Baseball. It's only one game in. I did lose on the Yankees at -180, so it did kind of impact my day a little bit, but hopefully that'll get better today. Like we said, don't rely on starting pitching and the odds right now. Make sure you check out who the relievers are and make sure you check out what their strike percentages are, because the guys that throw better strikes are the ones that are going to be more successful. And after about a week period, 10-day period, 3 starts in, you'll see who's good and who's not good. And at least every 5th day, you're going to get the best pitcher on each team. So don't fault those teams just because they're bad teams. You might get a win out of a Matthew Boyd or a John Means or somebody like that from bad teams like that. All right, we'll move on to the NBA now. A little bit. There's the early lines tonight. Boston 11.5 versus Houston. Houston, boy, they had a big lead on Brooklyn the other night, and then they ended up losing, and not only losing a 15-point lead, they didn't even cover. They lost by 12 points. Dallas is red hot. They won two in a row. This week they went in and beat up I forgot who they beat up on Monday. I had it in my notes, but then they beat up on the Celtics on Wednesday, 2-12 at New York. The Knicks in fifth place right now, but even in the loss column with the sixth place team, Atlanta. Atlanta won't have Trae Young or John Collins tonight. Indiana 4.5 versus Charlotte. Charlotte split their series with Washington. As you see the ticker at the bottom, you can get all the lines there for the NBA as we talk about it. What do you think about these early games, Charlie?
NBA right now is a little crazy. Everybody's kind of not doing what you think they ought to. I'm not quite sure what's happening. We thought that after the trade deadline that might cause a little separation. That hasn't happened. My best case in point right now, I think probably because they're right here, has been the Sacramento Kings, who won 6 in a row, and they finally dropped one to San Antonio. But why? I mean, they didn't get that much better at trade deadline time, and then they got a couple of guys. I mean, Mo Harkless, for heaven's sakes, comes here and all of a sudden starts playing really good basketball. Why? I don't know. Do I think he's going to continue to play really good basketball? No. But they got fired up all of a sudden. They lost Marvin Bagley Jr. to or Marvin Bagley the third. We'd like to lose Jr. That's a whole nother story. Don't get me going. He's fractured a hand, had to go out with surgery. They don't have him. He was playing pretty good basketball. They've lost him, and they're playing even better. There's just a whole lot of different stories out there of different things that are going on that have made things a little unpredictable right now. What's going to happen with the Lakers? They get Drummond, and now Drummond's not available. The Lakers come in with the Kings tonight, and you would say, okay, well, that's a yawner, and all of a sudden the Kings are the favorites in that game. It's just kind of an upside down league right now.
Go ahead, Casey.
Real quick for our people that just listen on audio, I just have to apologize. I mean, this is absolutely terrible static that's going on here. So I'm sorry if you just listen for today's broadcast. We'll have to work on our technical side. What I'm looking at here, guys, is basically almost every home team is favored tonight. That's pretty interesting to me. The only road favorites are Milwaukee -3 at Portland, and then Dallas -6. They got to check injury report for the Knicks because that seems a little high for me at the Garden. I don't know if I'd touch that game. 73% of the public money is on those Mavericks -6. We just found out that Steph Curry is out. He's got an injured tailbone. He's not playing at Toronto tonight, so that's why the Raptors are -5. And the Raptors are a hell of a conundrum to figure out. Maybe the best 18-30 team in the league. They're not in 12. Golden State's just 9-16 away, and a lot of public money after that announcement is coming in on those Raptors. I wouldn't touch the Kings with a 10-foot pole because I'm always wrong. But my instinct as far as when I jump in on them, like I typically get in at the end of them, either not covering a lot or covering a lot, and then I go the opposite way. That's probably the curse of just being a guy who actually likes the team, watches them all the time. I don't know. My instincts with them, though, as far as the gambling, haven't been that good. I think the marquee matchup could be up in the Rose Garden because you get Damian Lillard going against Giannis and company. The Bucks continue their road trip. They're pretty good away. I mean, they're 12-10, 2 games over 500. The public seems to love Portland as a 3-point dog, though, tonight. They're getting 81% of the money. And we're starting to creep in crunch time. So some of these teams are going to sort themselves out. A team that's playing pretty well is the Atlanta Hawks. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're getting 1.5 at New Orleans. And I believe the Pelicans are on a back-to-back. So that's their game I might shy away from. But all in all, I'm just glad we've gotten through this segment without mentioning any back and forth between former celebrities and a certain prominent player in Brooklyn. That does not interest me one bit. I want to watch games on the court. I don't want to see direct messages on Instagram and Twitter. It's nonsense.
It's total nonsense as we get to it. So the NBA standings right now, the Denver Nuggets, the hottest team in the NBA right now. They won 3 games in a row. The 3, 4, 5, 6 spots all have 18 losses. The Clippers, Lakers, Nuggets, and Blazers in that order. Dallas 25-21 in 7th spot, 3 games back of Portland of the 6th spot. And then San Antonio in the 8th spot, 24-22. Memphis 22-23. They're a 6.5-point favorite. It's Minnesota. The Warriors 23-25. Casey mentioned Curry's going to be out tonight. That line going up for Toronto. We go to the Eastern Conference. The Brooklyn Nets have finally taken over first place over Philadelphia. Still no Embiid. They're a half game up on Philadelphia. Both teams have 15 losses. Philadelphia one less win. Milwaukee Bucks 30-17. And then the drop starts. 6 games back are the Hornets, but you got the Hornets at 23 losses. Miami and New York, as we said, 24 losses. Atlanta 7th at 24 losses as well. Then Boston is 8th. Indiana 9th and Chicago 10th. Boston at 23-25, 21-25 for Indiana, who's had a rough week. They had leads in both games against Washington and Miami. They lose both games there. And then the Chicago Bulls played well against Phoenix with Vucevic now in the center spot, but they're in the 10th spot. They're looking at the playoff impact here. So a weekend's games, we got the lines up today. Not a lot of NBA basketball to talk about. This is kind of the dead period for the NBA as far as wagering-wise with baseball and NCAA Final Four going. But anything particular in the NBA for the weekend, Casey, that you're looking at or interested in surrounding the NCAA?
Well, I mean, it's not, I like to use my tasty word. This is a dud slate coming up this weekend. I mean, tomorrow's games, there's not a matchup with 2 teams that are good, I don't think, in a single game. I mean, you've got teams over 500, teams under 500, save for the Pacers and Spurs. You'll have the Magic at the Jazz. We'll see what that line is set at. Although the Magic have been, I know they burned up some bankrolls recently, at least from what I've been following on Facebook. And the Bucks and Kings will get together. That'll be a back-to-back for both those teams. So that'll be one to, keep an eye on as far as Milwaukee. I did want to mention this, Charlie, for the first time in a long time, the Lakers are the top pick as far as future odds. I'm obsessed with the futures market. LA now 3-1 odds to win the whole thing. Brooklyn has moved into the first choice at plus 240, plus 250. Clippers 5.5-1, Jazz 8-1, then the Bucks at 9-1. And how about this? We do not see this very often in basketball. The Nets are basically a pick on either dollars. You don't get back $1.05 for every dollar you bet. Even the Lakers will get you back $1.40 in the West. And I think, if healthy, they're still the prohibited favorite. So things are shuffling around a little bit. I am happy that I did not leave $100 in Reno on the Sixers to win the East because I'm worried about Embiid. And I also didn't know that Brooklyn was going to add like every all-star of the last 5 years after I would have made the bet. So I'm content to stay away from anything over the East unless you want to throw a few bucks on Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's odd right now. Everything's odd. I don't know what to say. The 53-man roster in Brooklyn is having an effect on the entire East. It was interesting today. I heard Danny Ainge in an interview with their I lost the term. What's when their station, their home station.
Yeah.
And they
flagship.
Thank you. Boy, that went right out of my head. I'm gonna have to get some Prevagen or something.
It's only been 40 years, Charlie. We'll give you another 40 years to know your radio terminology.
Their flagship station. And man, he was upset. Danny's over the last few years has been kind of a little quieter, and man, he was upset. And he just said, "Hey, internally, they've got in their locker room, they've got to pull it together." And he wasn't upset with coach; he was upset with players. But on the other hand, I got to say, Danny, you didn't do much at trade deadline. I mean, really, you guys needed to do more, and you didn't do it. So when you look at their record and you look at what's going on, you can go in and you can throw water bottles around and you can beat up on a few lockers and you can do everything else. But folks, if you're Celtics fans or you're looking at wagering on the Celtics, I'd think twice about that right now because they didn't do much to improve, and you can yell and scream all you want to, but they're not a very good team right now.
Aussie Battle Party, Casey Free Love, Charlie O, the Make the Money and Run podcast on Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page live, powered by Stables Media. We're here for 20 more minutes. We're going to get our picks in about 10 minutes, but let's move on to the Final Four. Obviously, big event this weekend, the Baylor Bears, the Houston Cougars, the first game of the day, 5.5 for Baylor, 134 is the total of the last check I got on the update. And then Gonzaga, 14, 145 versus UCLA. And an interesting point about Gonzaga, and I'll put this up there for Casey because I know he'll remember this, the Kentucky one from 96. The Final Four largest point spreads in the last 25 years, Duke minus 11 over Michigan State. They only won by 6. UNC over Syracuse minus 10 in 2016. They win by 17. And then the title game that I referenced in Kentucky beat up on Syracuse. Actually did not cover against Syracuse. They were a 14-point favorite when they won the title game. So this is the fourth highest total in Final Four title game history. What do we think about what's going to go on with Gonzaga and UCLA? Gonzaga wins all their tournament games by a combined total of 96 points, Casey.
Well, obviously we all overlooked UCLA, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have overlooked them. The Pac-12 was chaos. Nobody had Oregon State win that tournament. I mean, obviously I knew Johnny Juzang because I'm a fan of Kentucky basketball, and I liked watching him play there, but he clearly made the right decision for his future because now he's going to be a first-round NBA pick if he decides to pull the college team. Some interesting storylines here, guys. It's the 19th Final Four for the Bruins, and it's funny because, you know, we're all of the age where, at least, you know, I mean, I may be a little young to have watched Wooden coach, but I know who Wooden is. I know the reputation of UCLA producing so many NBA studs. Today's generation doesn't know that UCLA was once good because the last time they made the Final Four was 2008. Today's generation would probably perceive Gonzaga as more UCLA, despite the fact they haven't cut down the nets. But the thing that's going to be the biggest challenge is, can the Bruins, A, play lockdown defense like they did against Michigan in the second half of the entire contest? Because Gonzaga is just on fire. 34 consecutive victories dating back to last season. They've won a Division I record 27 straight games. As Vasu pointed out, you've got one of these really high point spreads. Those big favorites that he had on the screen there were just 1-3, by the way. The Dogs went 3-1, so something to keep in mind. This is a different kind of because a good friend of mine loves to trash mid-majors. He said they're a bracket buster. They'll never win it. And I kind of am usually along that line of thinking, but as Vasu always reminds me, this is a bracket buster Cinderella. This is a powerhouse program that has literally recruited 3 NBA guys, is playing at the highest level. They love their coach. And Charlie, I don't know if there's a team that fundamentally runs this better. This is our territory. This reminds me of when UNLV was playing with the Amoeba back in 1990. This is a team that's just a polished Corvette of a team that, unless you play perfect basketball, you're going to get the doors blown off you, and it's not going to be a very entertaining game. So I'm really hoping, for our sake as fans, that, in all honesty, the Baylor-Houston game is close, because this one's probably not going to be.
Yeah, you know what, Casey, and I think as far as a mid-major team comparison, that UNLV running Rebel team is probably a good comparison, because they weren't a mid-major team either at the time when they were going. And I can tell you that because I saw them. I was calling games and got to see them from courtside a number of times during that time. Right now, the ESPN Basketball Power Index runs it this way. The Zags have a 54% chance to win, Baylor a 24%, Houston 20%, and UCLA a 2% chance to win the national title, based on the way it goes down. I was trying to set this up odds-wise to look at it, and I hate going chalky. I hate going chalky when it gets down to this kind of thing. Except, guys, I watched Gonzaga play the other night, and I looked at him and I went, oh my gosh. You know, guys, when you think about this, all season long, they only have one game that they won by single digits. Everything else they've won by double digits. I mean, that's crazy. That is absolutely insane. And I know that UCLA plays lockdown defense. Okay. It's great. It's really From a basketball standpoint, because I'm a basketball guy, I love lockdown defense. You know what? You can lock the defense down all you want. I don't know that their lockdown defense can stop a powerhouse offense like Gonzaga plays. And I'm telling you, I don't think their defense I don't think they can lock that defense down enough to stop the offensive juggernaut that is the Zags.
And I think, Vasu,
go ahead,
let me
Casey, sorry.
say this. If UCLA is going to have a chance in this game, they are going to have to make Gonzaga alter their play style. Run up and down the court as fast as you will with them. UCLA has shot 40% in 2 of these wins, which is just insanity that they were even able to win. It just shows you how good they were playing defensively. And I think pace of game is going to be the key to this whole thing, the pace at which it's played.
Well, I mean, let's face it, Gonzaga, they pass the ball better than any team I've seen in the last 20 years. They've got shooters everywhere. Like I've said in the last few broadcasts we've had, it's if it's not Suggs, it's not Kispert, then it's Kispert. If it's not Kispert, then it's Nembhard. Then it's a Yaya, and if you can't shoot from the outside, then you got Timmy on the inside. They're going 80 points a game. Can UCLA even come up to 70? I don't think they can, and I don't care how good your defense is because you can't outrun the ball. And the way they pass, you're not going to be able to catch up to that ball. And, I mean, they didn't even play well against Creighton. They won by 18. They had USC down in the first 10 minutes, and USC is a pretty good team. I thought they were the best team in the Pac-12, and even the Mobley twins on the inside couldn't stop them defensively rebounding because they were getting offensive rebounds. They forced turnovers left and right, and I think they'll be able to do that with UCLA as well. Johnny Juzang had 28 points of the 51 against Michigan the other night. The other starters were under 30% shooting combined. So that's a problem there from that standpoint. And then what's Houston going to do? I'll throw it to you guys before we get to picks here. Is Houston have to slog it out with Baylor? I mean, they don't shoot the ball well. Grimes and Sasser, Giroux, great players. Giroux, a triple-double machine pretty much every game. But they don't have the offensive capability with Baylor and those guards. They're going to have to shoot and go get the ball. They out-rebounded on the offensive boards Oregon State 19-7 in the game. And if it wasn't for a three-pointer by Oregon State at the buzzer, Houston would have covered that game pretty easy. They had a 17-point lead at the half, and then Oregon State, give them credit, they did come back, but there were a lot of turnovers by Houston in the second half. I just don't see how their lack of shooting is going to be able to keep up with Baylor because you saw what they did in their Sweet 16 or in their Elite 8 game the other night. When they get those guards going between Teague and Mitchell and Butler, and then you've got Vital in the post down there. They don't really have an inside game, but they don't need an inside game when you got those 3 guards. And then Flagger off the bench is also a good shooter too. And they play lockdown defense, and Scott Drew hasn't played as well as anybody. They had their COVID issues, and they were struggling coming out of it. But they look like they're back right now, and I just don't think Houston can slog it out with Baylor because Baylor's a physical team, Casey.
Well, I mean, I think we both have all, or most of us have known, even the listeners, that the 2 best teams in the country this year are Arkansas and Baylor. I really hope that's the game we get. I mean, if Houston wins, God bless them. But as far as a watchability standpoint on Monday, I don't want to see Gonzaga win by 20 points. That's not fun unless it's your school. So it is pretty much. Look, credit Kelvin Sampson for going down there and building this. He got a transfer. Quentin Grimes, AAC Co-Conference Player of the Year. Giroux is a pretty good player as well. The problem I'm finding here, though, is against Oregon State. Oregon State's big and slow and oafish. I mean, they had all those tall 6'10" guys. You're going against basically a team that's willing to run a 4-guard set in Baylor. So the pace of play and the way to attack is completely different. The good thing, if you are a Cougars fan, though, they lead the nation in field goal percentage defense, only allowing 37.3%. And that will be the key to whether or not they really get this done. Look, Drew family since I was introduced to Bryce in 1998 when him and Valpo beat Ole Miss. So I'm happy for his brother, Scott. I love what he's done down there. Don't forget, Baylor's been on the periphery of doing this. The Elite 8 and lost. They lost to the eventual national champion. I believe it was 2010 and 2012. So they've been cooking and getting ready. The COVID thing, I think, put them aside. But I think the for that is maybe they aren't as tired as a Houston or a Gonzaga. I don't know if I'm just kind of, peeling off storylines, trying to find something to talk about. But they did get an extra 3 weeks of rest in the middle of the year. And they had enough time to rebound. They had that one-off game against Oklahoma State where they lost in the Big 12. But they came into this tournament, and they've been playing fundamentally great basketball. They got a great coaching line. And Daniel Mitchell, he's the X factor, obviously. If he can get around his average of 14 points, then they're going to win this game. one last thing before I throw it over to you, Chuck. I want to take a look at what the public's thinking about these games. Right now, you've got 31% of the money on Houston +5, 69% of the money on Baylor -5. I think that's a good line, and that could potentially go where we land. 84% of the money is on, that's on the money line for Baylor. Is 84% of the money. Now, totals, 70% of the people think this one's going over 135. I'm thinking this game isn't going to be going over 135. If Baylor wins, then it probably will. So these are hard games to handicap. This is my worst tournament ever. I finally got one right that would bring Arkansas last time. But it took till the last freaking 3 minutes because Arkansas just sucked in the second half. So careful. And when you see my picks in a minute, you guys are going to laugh because I did go the power route second.
Well, this Houston Baylor game, it's going to be fun because it's a intrastate rivalry. In fact, I had a chance to look back in the national semifinals and national championships. This hasn't happened very often. The last time it happened was 2012 in the semis. It was Kentucky-Louisville. Then you go all the way back to 1962 in the championship game, Ohio State-Cincinnati. And let's talk about a couple of the names that were in that game. That was Jerry Lucas, John Havlicek, and Bobby Knight on that team for Ohio State, and Oscar Robertson for Cincinnati. The same group of guys did it in 1961, same two teams. And then in 1954, it happened between LaSalle and Penn State. I didn't even realize Penn State played basketball.
Right.
So I suppose they have white uniforms. I think that's mandatory at Penn State. So this is a big thing, and I'm happy for all the people in Texas. Maybe this will make them a little happier. So it'll be a fun thing there. But guys, I'm really believing in this Baylor team, and like I said, I don't like to get chalky, but I like the way they're playing. They're well coached, and this is a program. If you look at where Scott Drew took this program over in 2003 and what he has done with this program and how it's been built, it ought to be a movie. It ought to be a freaking movie or a mini series or something, because it's phenomenal. It is just phenomenal what they've done down there. And Casey, I'm with you. If Gonzaga and Baylor aren't the finals, I'm not sure I'm going to watch.
Oh my God, you'll watch. Don't even start that. You'll watch. I guarantee you'll watch. Jesus Christ. Let's not try and fool the listeners here, all right? All right, one quick note here before we get to our picks here. Thought it was an April Fool's joke yesterday. We'll talk more about it on Monday before the title game as we get to it. But 903 wins for Roy Williams. I really thought it was an April Fool's joke. He announced his retirement after 33 years of coaching, 418, 101 at Kansas, 485 and 163 in North Carolina. We'll talk a lot about him. 33 years coaching. He just said, he said he doesn't think he's the best man for the job. And of course, today we want to get a little love out because I did cover them and we do know people there. And I do have some knowledge of the Stanford program. Stanford is 6 versus South Carolina in the women's Final Four. That's about 55 minutes from now. And UConn -14 against Arizona, the first time the University of Arizona Wildcats have made the Final Four as well. This is us right here, Make the Money and Run podcast powered by Stables Media with Bossy, Casey, and Charlie. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to take 30 seconds, and we'll be back with our picks in 30. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, April 2nd. Happy Passover, happy Easter weekend to everybody. We're here Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific on Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page. If you miss any of the live broadcasts, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll have the championship game on Monday. We'll talk more NBA, and then, of course, we'll be through the first weekend of Major League Baseball. All right, let's get to picks here in our last 5 minutes. As we start with Charlie O. Go ahead.
All right. Well, let's see. I'm going to have to look at my picks here and see what I did. We've been so engrossed in this. Let's go baseball tonight. I am going with Keuchel because I like him on the mound. I'm going White Sox, and I'm going to have to go to my other. I've got my little screen up here today. What are we? Plus one.
You got Memphis -6.5 over Minnesota, and then Baylor -5 and Gonzaga -14.
14. So I am consistent. I've gone chalky on that on the NCAA. Sorry, folks, but you know what? We also talk about first instinct. So I looked at the odds, then I backed up, I walked away, I came back, and I didn't look at the odds. I just looked at the scoreboard, and I said, that's where I got to go. That's just where I've got to go on the NCAA. On baseball, I looked at some things, and I just, the White Sox are a better team than the Angels, and they should win. I'm a little antsy because pitching at this time of the season can let you down, but I still think I just think that Keuchel's better than Haney, and I think they'll do better there. And Minnesota, they're a mess, and I think Memphis will feast on that.
All right, Casey, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to ride with Bauer the first 5 innings, and I'm positive the Dodgers are going to score more early in this game. I like them to win it too, but first 5, it's a little cheaper price, -220. I try and stay away from above 200, but games -240, you got to think LA's due. So Bauer, Dodgers, first 5, -220. Then White Sox with Keuchel. I'm going to ride with Chuck on that one. I know Vasu disagrees. I'm going to say it every time. It's the first week here. List your pitchers. Make sure it's Keuchel against Haney. That's what you want. If somebody gets scratched and you don't say list pitchers, your bet's still active, and you can often get burned. In the NCAA, as I mentioned, something that served me well are 6-point teasers. I see Baylor at -5, so I'm going to tease it both these games plus 6 points, and I'll take Baylor +1 because I get total under 151.5. And I know that's a little bit of a dangerous play, Vasu, but I just feel like even if Gonzaga is blowing them out, UCLA can't score enough to get this thing over that particular total. I think that's pretty solid.
All right, Casey's picks right there. UCLA Zags under 151.5, Baylor +1 on a 6-point teaser. For me, I'm going with the Tampa Bay Rays tonight. I think Ryan Yarbrough will go with their Houston Astros +117 with Javier. The Angels -112. Andrew Haney's going to have it tonight. Charlotte Hornets +4.5. The Milwaukee Bucks. I can't figure the Bucks out, but I don't think Portland plays defense. Milwaukee -3. This is their on and off again game. They had an off game Monday. They won against the Lakers, and now they split it in LA against the Clippers and the Lakers, and now they're going to win against Portland tonight. Baylor -4.5. I'm 5.5, and Gonzaga -14. Cannot see UCLA competing with Gonzaga. Gonzaga plays in a mid-major conference, but they are no mid-major team. One other note we wanted to tell you, Major League Baseball, we'll talk about it more on Monday. The All-Star game has been pulled out of Atlanta, all the politics that go with that. We don't need to go into the politics. The All-Star game will be out of Atlanta, as well as the Major League Baseball draft. Vasu Vadaparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page live. We appreciate all the comments. Robbie, Scott, everybody that's watching with us, Ron Carlson as well, too. Appreciate all the comments. Don't forget, we're here every Monday, Thursday, and Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific on Facebook Live and the Stables Media YouTube page. If you miss any of the live broadcasts, want to get our picks right up until game time, download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. Have a great Passover weekend. Have a great Easter weekend, Charlie, Casey, to you both as well. Let's enjoy the Final Four. Let's enjoy baseball, and let's get back into the swing of things here as we move forward post-2020 COVID. That's the Make the Money and Run podcast for April 2nd, 2021. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. It's going to be very exciting. And we will see you Monday right here, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, Facebook Live, and the Stables Media YouTube page. Have a great weekend. And as always, good luck.
Kenny Reitz.